Sorry, this is just Adil.
Yeah, Adil.
Assalamualaikum, Teacher Fateh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullah, Pasha. Long time no see. How are you?
Great.
Alhamdulillah. That's good.
Great.
Let's wait a few minutes for other people to join. Okay, I think we'll see if other people join. We can start. Actually, before we start, do you guys prefer to communicate in WhatsApp or Discord? Do you guys have a WhatsApp? Adil, do you have a WhatsApp or you have both?
Yeah, both.
Okay. Let's see. Which one do you check more often, Discord or WhatsApp? Which one is easier?
WhatsApp.
WhatsApp. Okay. Pasha, do you have WhatsApp?
Yes.
WhatsApp. Okay. Do you know your number? Your phone number?
Okay. Here it goes. 213 475 and 9319.
Okay, sorry. 213
213 475 9319.
Okay. Thank you, Pasha.
You're
And
welcome.
then, yes, I have your number 2, Adele. Okay. And then, Haris, do you have WhatsApp, Haris? Are you here, Haris? If you have WhatsApp, you can put your phone number in the chat, and then I can create a WhatsApp group for our halaqa so that you guys can get updates when the meeting starts. You don't have WhatsApp? Okay, that's okay. Then I can message your mom as well. I think I do have her number. So, and yeah, we should be able to get the meetings anyway. But for those of you who have WhatsApp, I can add a group and then add you guys. Assalamualaikum, Basim.
Assalamualaikum.
Salam. So we're about to create a WhatsApp group for this halaqa. So do you have a WhatsApp number, Basim?
I don't think I do have one right now.
You don't have WhatsApp? Okay, that's okay. Then maybe I will just create a WhatsApp for those who have numbers so that you guys can get the updates, and then I'll add you there, and you can. If you don't have it, then I still have your parents' numbers, so you can still get the updates. Okay, so I think we can get started then today. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد رب اغفر لي ولوالدي وارحمهما كما ربياني صغيرا رضيت بالله ربا وبالإسلام دينا وبمحمد نبيا ورسولا رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. And we'll try to get into the habit of reciting Al-Fatiha at the beginning, so you can recite it out loud or on your own. So let's start. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. بسم الله. Okay, thanks everyone for coming again to today's halaqa Sunday. So hopefully last week you guys learned something. So anyone remember what the topic was last week? Just to refresh your memory. Or we already forgot?
Well, what was the question?
What's the topic last week? Just to refresh your memory.
We were like talking about like what Islam was, and like the challenges we might face like in school.
Yeah. Cool. Yep. That's the first part. Yes. So we're talking about because we're I'm sure all of us are in the U.S. in America, living in the West, right? As Muslims, Muslim Indonesians, and yeah, there are many challenges we face. You guys listed some, and inshallah, this halaqa will be a way to hopefully help you address some of those challenges, right? So because we are all have similar experiences, then inshallah we can help each other address these challenges. Okay, good. And anything else? Well, what else did we cover last week? Basim, do you remember what else we covered last week?
We did how to understand Quran, like read Quran, understand it, then translate it.
Yep. And what was the specific surah we tried to understand last week?
The opening surah.
Yes. So opening is Al-Fatiha, right? What we just recited in the beginning, right? It's the opening, and it is a surah that we all hopefully know. And now that we've at least studied a little bit last week, so you guys have a general meaning, right, of Al-Fatiha, what it means. So when the next time you recite Al-Fatiha, try to understand like what you're reading, right? So not just read it, blindly without any understanding, but at least you have some idea. Like at least if there's anything you can remember from what we talked about last week, then at least it'll be helpful, right? Because remember the 4 steps, right, is to read, translate, understand, right, and apply. Right, so we try to remember those things whenever you recite the Quran, and Al-Fatiha specifically, try to remember like the lessons that we learned, right? What is Al-Fatiha about? So we're not going to cover that again today. So today we're going to talk about the hadith, right? So remember, last week I also talked about, right? As Muslims, we have two very important sources of truth, right? So two very important. You can think of it like sources for knowledge, right? So we have the first is the Quran, and the second is the Sunnah. And what is the Sunnah again? Can you tell me? Or the Hadith? What is that? Can you tell me what that is?
The quotes of the Prophet.
The quotes of the Prophet, the actions and sayings of the Prophet, right? So both what he did and what he said, right? Because everything he did and he said, right, is basically from the Quran. Okay, so like remember what we said, that the Quran is our guidebook to life, and the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is basically the example. Like how if there's something you wanted to do in life, you just look at his example, right? So if like think of it like the Quran is the manual for like your car, and then the Prophet or his teachings are like the expert driver. You can think of it like that. Think of it like you have the guidebook for a car, like your car is your life, and then the driver, right, the someone who's experienced driving, is the Prophet, right? Or you can apply it to anything else too, like a guidebook to anything, and the Prophet is like the professional at achieving that thing. Okay, it makes sense, right? So, right, of course we have to study the Quran, but it's meaningless if we don't even know what to do, right? So that's why we look into the Hadith and the Sunnah, which is basically figuring out what he did and what he said. Like how did he approach certain situations? Like how did he deal with his wives? How did he deal with his companions? How did he deal with like disputes between friends, or like with the grieving, like how to deal with death, like people who pass away, or how to deal with educate, like teaching and wars. Like he fought in many battles, right? Of course, not to say that we want to go into war, but he even teaches those things as well. It's a very comprehensive life that he led, and that it teaches us as well. So that's why many scholars try to compile all these hadith, right? There are hundreds of thousands of hadith, hundreds of thousands of sayings and actions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that we can learn from, right? There's even a quote, I keep forgetting who mentioned this, but there's a quote that a historian was, he noted the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam as the most influential person with the least amount of resources. Like you guys know about Julius Caesar, Alexander the Great, all these great kings and queens in history, right? They all had these powerful empires, right? But the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he noted, was the most influential. He was more influential than everyone else, right? Because imagine this man was, he lived in Arabia, and he was illiterate, right? He didn't know how to read. He didn't know how to write. He didn't know, he had some business, and he was able to make good wealth, but he didn't have like the, he didn't have the education that a lot of like these, other noteworthy figures in history were, right? He was very, he's very limited on his resources. And of course, Arabia was not like, it's not like they were like at the top, right, in like education, right? They were very, before Islam, actually, that land of Arabia was considered like backwards by a lot of, the surrounding empires and countries, right? They were very backwards culture before Islam came, right? So, and despite all of that, now we have how many billion Muslims in the world today, right? Imagine the influence over like 1,500 years, like just from one man, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Assalamu alaikum, Raihan. How are you?
Walaikum assalam.
Good. Okay, Raihan, can you put your number in the chat? I'm going to create a WhatsApp group. Do you have WhatsApp, by the way? Are you able to use WhatsApp?
I do have Skype, but I don't have a number.
Oh, okay. That's okay. Yeah. I was gonna say I think I could create a group. Or do you have Discord then? Maybe.
I have Discord on my old laptop, but I recently uninstalled.
Okay, that's okay. Okay, that's okay. Then I can still message your parents, and you can get the updates there. And I'll create the group for those who have WhatsApp. So that's okay. So back to the topic. So we were talking about the hadith, right? The sunnah, right? Which is the actions and the sayings of the Prophet, right? And there's actually even a science to studying this too, right? So sometimes if you guys have read any hadith before, right? Some hadith have this thing called a chain. What is the chain? Anyone know what the chain is in a hadith? When I say like a chain of narration, what does that mean? Anyone? So when we study hadith, there's this thing called a chain of narration, right? What is it, and why is it important? Okay, anyone know the game Telephone?
Yeah.
You guys know about Telephone, right? You don't know about Telephone?
I heard about it, but like I don't really know what it is.
No, I've played it before.
Yeah. So if you don't know what Telephone is, imagine you have a group of friends. Say you have like 10 friends, right, in a line, or like they're sitting down in a line, and one person at the end, he has a message. Say he wants to say, the fish in the tank is blue, right? Some statement like that, like just say whatever statement, like the fish in the tank is blue, and he whispers it to the person next to him. Okay. And then that person, right, at the end, who whispers next to him, then he tells the person next to him, right? And it keeps going, right? So each person in the chair, they whisper to the person next to them what the message was, okay? Until the very end, right? When the last person gets the message, then he repeats what the message was to the rest of the group, right? And basically the goal of the game is to make sure that the message is the same, right? Make sure that no one messed up the message when it was being transferred to the last person, right? So, and usually if you play this game with 10 friends, then you can see, right, sometimes the message is not the same, right? Because sometimes some people might have misheard it, some people might have changed it a little bit, right? Until the very end when it becomes completely different. Like it could be they could say like the dog in the house is red or something like that, you know? So, right, that's Telephone, right? It means that something changed in the chain, right? There's a chain of people. You could call it the narrators, right? And there's a chain, and in the chain there could have been like a change, right? So it causes the message to be different, right? In the end, right? So it's the same concept with hadith, right? With hadith, imagine, right? The Prophet lived how many years ago? How many years ago did the Prophet live? Can you tell me?
1,454 years ago.
Okay, so about 1,454 years, right? So almost 1,500 years ago, right? And imagine, right? There's no one that's 1,400 years old, right? No one, no one lived to be, that long to actually is alive, right? No one alive right now has met the Prophet, obviously, right? So someone, if you want to know what he said, someone has to have recorded it, right? So there has to be companions who reported it, and then the companions, right? They have to record what they said, and then their companions have to record what they said, and so on and so forth until now, right? Where now we're living in the 21st century, or 2024, right? And how can we tell that what the Prophet said is really what he said? You see, right? With Telephone, right? It's possible that there could have been changes, right? And that's why the chain of narration is so important, right? Because with the chain, if the chain is broken at any point, then whatever we hear, we say, or whatever the Prophet said, we don't even know if he said it or not. Right? Makes sense, right? So how can we tell if a hadith is authentic? And that's why you'll hear about authenticity, right? If a hadith is authentic, sahih. So in Arabic, it's called sahih. Right? Sahih means that the chain of narration has been proven to be authentic. That means it's basically, this is, inshallah, like very, very highly likely that this is what the Prophet ﷺ said, right? And the scholars have developed this science, and there's a lot of details we can go into it. But basically, whenever you read a hadith, you have to make sure you know the authenticity, right? Like there's a grade, right? There's a sahih, which means authentic. There's hasan, which means good. So hasan does not mean it's not authentic, but it means with some degree of confidence, right? This hadith, we can think that this is what the Prophet said, but we shouldn't say this is absolutely what he said, because there's still some doubt, right? And then there's even more levels. There's da'if, right, which is like weak. Weak chain of narration means that somewhere along the chain, like maybe someone messed up, or someone, when just a side bit, but when the hadith scholars look at these things, they even look at the character of the narrators. Like there's a story where someone was reporting what the Prophet said, right? But he was known to be a liar. Imagine, right? If the scholar was a liar and he basically like fabricated what the hadith said, right? So if that's fabricated, then we can't read it because we don't know if it's true or not, right? So it's very important that when you guys read any hadith like online or wherever someone tells you, make sure that you ask them, is this authentic? Is this true? Is this like a sahih? Say if it's a sahih hadith, right? Because we want to make sure that we have the right hadith. Okay, makes sense. Right? So that's what a chain of narration is. You can also hear it as sanad. Sanad is a chain. They also call it sanad. Okay. So for today, we're going to study. We're going to start learning and looking into the hadith, and specifically, we're looking at the hadith of the 40 hadith of Imam An-Nawawi. So some of you have already, if you were with me before, you might have already known about this hadith, right? It's basically there's an Imam called Imam Nawawi who compiled, right, a list of 40 hadith, because we know, right, there's hundreds of thousands of hadith, right? Imagine like if you have a whole book, right? The book would be like, this big of all, like, every hadith, right? It would be super big. It'd be very hard to figure out what to even look at, right? So there's many books out there, not just Imam Nawawi, but also the righteous Riyad al-Salihin. There's many hadith that covers that has a small subsection of that. But the 40 hadith is basically a collection that many scholars have deemed as the most very comprehensive, and basically covers a lot of the Islam with very little, right? So we don't have to study 100,000 hadith. We can just study 40. Okay, and so let me share my screen. Where is it? Okay. Okay, so you guys can see this. And so this is a site you guys can also look up to. It's the 40hadithnawawi.com. It's basically just 40 hadith Nawawi in a website. And they have all the hadith here. There's many of them, of course. And we might not get to all of them, but inshallah, at least we can get to the most important ones, right? The ones that are, we can take immediate lessons from, right? So we're going to look at the first hadith, which is actions are by intentions. Okay, I think you might have heard of this as well. But it's considered this could be considered like one of the fundamentals of Islam, right? Like basically, like if there's anything that Islam is based off of, you can link back to this. So anyone would like to volunteer to read just the English? Who would like to read the English?
I could do it.
Okay, go ahead.
Make it bigger.
Okay.
You can say it.
Okay, go ahead, Adil.
It is narrated on the authority of Amir al-Mu'mineen, leader of the believers, Abu Hafs Umar bin al-Khattab, may Allah be pleased with him, who said, I heard the Messenger of Allah, peace be upon him, say, actions are according to intentions, and everyone will get what was intended. Whoever migrates with an intention for Allah and His Messenger, the migration will be for the sake of Allah and His Messenger. And whoever migrates for worldly gain or to marry a woman, then his migration will be for the sake of whatever he migrated for.
Okay, thank you, Adil. So this is a hadith, right? This is basically the full hadith. You can see in the beginning, right? What this part is, the chain. It's actually been shortened. So if you look at the real chain of narration, it's much bigger than this. But this usually just refers goes from the first in the chain and goes to the last in the chain. So you guys know who Umar bin Khattab is, right? Who is Umar bin Khattab? Anyone? Anyone know who Umar bin Khattab is?
Yes.
Who is he?
Second Khalifa. He's the second Khalifa.
Yes, right. So he's one of the most beloved companions of the Prophet and the second Khalifa. Yes, right. So he is the narrator of this hadith, and And of course, there's a big narration, chain of narration as well. Okay, and from the hadith, we see that from the beginning is actions are according to intentions, right? In the Arabic, is innamal a'malu binniyat. Okay, what does that mean, right? What does it mean when action is by intention? Who can tell me? Anyone have any ideas? So when we say actions are by intentions, what does it mean?
Like whatever we do, like we should have like the right intention. Like for example, like if you're only gonna do it like your own purpose, then it doesn't like really count.
Yes, yep, exactly. Right? So that means even if two people do the same deeds, let's say you're donating charity. You're donating to charity, like you both have like $20. Okay, and you both donate to charity, but one of you donates because he wants to show off. Like say, oh, I'm donating this money and I want people to know that I donated because I'm a good person, right? And the other person is donating because he sincerely wants to help the charity. Like he wants to donate to Gaza, for example, to Palestine. He wants to make sure that this money can feed a hungry family, or he wants to donate to the homeless, make sure the homeless gets food, right? Or he donates for sadaqah, for the masjid to expand something, right? Any charity, right? But he has a better intention, right? Who do you think will get the better reward? Right? The second person, right? The person who has better intention, right? Which means that even though they do the same act of even if they do the same good deed, because their intention is different, they will get different reward, right? Allah will reward the one with better intentions. Okay? And what does that mean? Right? That means we always have to watch our intentions, right? Because even though we think we are doing good deeds, if we don't have the right intention, right, we might get no or little reward, right? So that's why it's very important that we do what we have, what is known as ikhlas, right? Ikhlas means sincerity, right? You need to have sincerity in your actions, right? And in the hadith, it also even mentions, right? Because at the time, right, there was the hijrah, right? What is the hijrah? Anyone know? This is something called the hijrah. What is the hijrah? Anyone know? So the hijrah is the migration, right? So at the time, right, remember that the Prophet used to live in where? In Mecca, right? And he had to migrate to Medina, right? So hijrah is the migration from Mecca to Medina, right? So there were some Muslims in Mecca, right, who wanted to migrate with the Prophet, right, because they wanted to be with him, right? They wanted to follow Islam, they wanted to obey the Prophet, they wanted to be with the Prophet, right? Right? So that's what it mentions here, right? Whoever migrates with intention for Allah and His Messenger, the migration will be for the sake of Allah and His Messenger, right? Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Right? But there was a story, right? There's one of the companions, one of the men there, wanted to migrate because his I think either fiance or girlfriend, or basically his beloved woman that he wanted to marry, was migrating with the Prophet, right? That the woman was migrating with the Prophet, and the man basically wanted to migrate just to marry her, right? And because of this, right, then because of his intention, he did not get the reward of the Prophet said that he will only get the reward of marrying the woman, right? He won't get the reward of the migration itself, even though the hijrah, right, is considered like a very good deed, that basically that you're migrating for the sake of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Even though he did that, he didn't get that reward because his intention was to marry a woman, right? So that's why intention is very important, right? That we need to be sincere in what we do, right? And that we need to have good deeds, right? When we do good deeds, we need to make sure we have intention, right? There's even like there's a scholar, I think Imam Shafi'i, I think, because intention is so important. Basically, every time you do something, you always he would basically just stop in his place, make the intention, like say I will intend to do this for this sake, for this purpose, right? Like that you just stop and make sure your intention is clear, because that's how important it is, right? And everything in Islam basically comes from intention. Okay. And what is the best intention? Who can tell me what the best intention is for any good deed, for any deed?
To do something for the greater good.
Okay, for the greater good. Okay, that's part of it. But why is that important? Why should we care about doing something for the greater good? Like, why should I care if something helps, the greater good of the people?
Because it might be for the greater good of the world.
Okay, but why should I care about the greater good of the world? Why is that important, right? Who can tell me, right? And that's a good intention. No, that is a good intention, right? If you have that intention to help other people, that is still something that is good, right? But there's something even better than that. Like something that the reason for why we help other people. What is that reason, right? It's part of what makes us Muslim. What is it? Anyone else?
Wait, what was the question?
What is the best intention you can make, right? So beyond even just helping other people for the greater good, what is the best intention?
And like for the sake of Allah.
Yes, right? To do something for the sake of Allah, right? Because remember, what is our purpose on this life, right? In this life, our purpose is to what? What is our purpose? As human beings created in this world. Right? Our purpose is to what?
Like to pray to Allah.
To pray to Allah, to worship Allah. Right? Our purpose is solely just to worship Allah. Okay? Right? It's the reason that Adam alayhi salam was created. It's the reason the prophets were created. It's the reason everything in this universe is created to worship Him, right? To worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? And so, our actions, right? We need to do things for the sake of Allah. And part of that is also helping other creations, right? If we help other people for the greater good, that's also worshiping Allah, right? Because we are helping other people. We are helping, for example, even if you help the, take care of the plants, the trees, like, take care of the environment, right? That's taking care of His creation, right? Because you're doing it to take care of Allah's creation, right? If you help other people, you're helping them for the sake of Allah, that you're taking care of Allah's creation, right? All of it comes back to our purpose in life, which is to worship Allah. That everything we do has to be for the sake of Allah, right? And that is the true ikhlas, that is the true sincerity, right? To be truly sincere, we always have to remember what is our purpose, what is our intention, right, behind everything, right? We're going to cover that in the second hadith as well. What is ikhlas? What does true sincerity mean? Okay, but intention, right, is very important, right? That we need to make sure that we have intention, right? And part of it is also taqwa, right? That to have the consciousness of Allah, right? That if we always remember who Allah is, then inshallah our intention will be clear. Right? We will always make sure that our intention is clear, right? Okay, and then let's say, if we do a good action, right? If you do an action, right, and say let's say we have two deeds, right? We have a good deed and a bad deed, right? So let's say we have a good deed and you have an intention, right? Say you wanted to donate some money to the masjid, or you wanted to, for example, volunteer at some event, okay? And let's say that you weren't able to do it, right? For example, you wanted to, you were gonna drive to the masjid to help with an event or to donate some money, and for some reason the car broke down and you weren't able to go to the masjid, right? Will you still be rewarded for that? Yes, right? Because your intention was there, right? Allah rewards the intention, right? This is very important, right? It's not for good deeds, right? It's not the deed that, of course, doing the deed, you need to make sure that you do the deed, but the intention is what's rewarded. So even though you didn't go to the masjid and do the good deed, you're still rewarded for your intention. Or let's say you wanted to go to the masjid to salat, just to do your prayer. Like you wanted to get out, go to the masjid, and then your car broke down, right? Or there's huge traffic jam for some reason, right? You had the intention to go to the masjid, and even though you weren't able to go to the masjid, you still get the reward for praying in the masjid because your intention was there, right? Allah rewards your intention. That's how important intention is. Right? Compare this to someone who goes to the masjid, right, because their parents told them to. Like, I don't want to go to the masjid, but my dad is, forcing me to go to the masjid. And you even though you prayed at the masjid, your intention, right, even though you still get the reward of the deed itself, but you don't get as much reward for your intention, because your intention, is just like you don't really care about doing the salat because your parents told you to, right? Or maybe you were forced to, or something like that, right? That's why it's very important that we have intention, that you have to understand, why am I doing this deed? Like, what is the purpose of me doing this, right? We always want to make sure that we have sincerity in that. But the flip side, imagine you're doing a bad deed. Let's say you wanted to, I don't know, take some money from the box for some reason. Don't do that, right? But let's say someone did, right? That they wanted to take some money from the donation box. Okay, they had this intention. They wanted to take the money from the donation box, but they weren't able to. Will you be punished for your intention?
Wait, what was the question?
Let's say someone wanted to commit a sin. They wanted to commit a bad deed to steal some money, and then they weren't able to because someone blocked them, like someone, or maybe maybe they were too late or something. Will they be punished or no? What do you think?
Yeah.
The answer is actually no.
Oh.
Right. So this might seem a little weird, right? But for bad deeds, right, Allah only punishes the deed itself, right? Even if your intention was bad, right? But this goes to show how merciful He is, right? That Allah rewards intentions, but He punishes deeds. So even though you had this intention to do something, as long as you don't commit it, right? Like, even if you had the intention to do it, if you don't do it, Allah won't, inshallah, Allah won't punish you, right? And this because He wants to make sure you don't have that sin, right? He doesn't want you to commit this sin, even though you had the intention. And on the other side, let's say you accidentally committed a sin. Maybe you accidentally hit someone, or you accidentally, I don't know, like wronged someone, like you did some bad deed, and you didn't have that intention, right? And because of that, even because you didn't have that intention, then you also won't be, be punished for that, as long as you make amends. Like, say you wronged someone, as long as you apologize and you sincerely ask for forgiveness, right? As long as you have that intention to ask for forgiveness, then inshallah Allah will not punish you for that, even though you committed a sin. Like, say it's not a sin, but you committed some bad deed, right? Because your intention was not there, right? So this goes to show how it's very easy, right, to get reward and to avoid punishment, right? As long as we have the intention, right? And even if we have a bad intention, right, then if things are blocking us from committing that deed, then inshallah we won't have we won't get the sin from that. Okay, make sense?
Yes.
Right. So as long as our intention matches the action, inshallah we will get the reward for it, right? So if we intend to do a good thing and the good thing is not, if we intend to do a good thing, inshallah we'll be rewarded for it. If we tend to do a bad thing, the bad thing will not be punished unless we fully continue to do it. Okay, right? Okay. This site also has a video, but we won't go into it. Right. So yeah, one of the biggest intentions, right, is showing off. Right. So that's one of the most common intentions that often causes a good deed to not be rewarded. Right. So that's why it's very important that we always evaluate our intentions. So when we're doing a good deed, always ask yourself, am I doing this to show off? Like, am I doing this thing because I want other people to know about it? Right? You always think about that, right? Because we want to make sure that we get the full reward, right? If you're doing a good deed, say you're fasting, right? And sometimes you want to just brag to our friends, hey, I can't eat that food because I'm fasting, because I'm better than you guys, right? So, you guys might have, may or may not have thought about that, right? Or like maybe, you want to show off, oh, I have to go pray, because I'm better than you guys, right? Right? That's or showing off, right? That's a common intention that you guys might sometimes have, right? And if we have that, then it's going to, obviously we're not going to be sincere in what we do, right? And we might not get the full reward, right? That's why it's very important that we always think our best intention is what? To do it for the sake of Allah, right? To please Allah, right? That we always want to think, okay, I want to fast, not because someone told me to, or not because I want to show off, but I want to fast because I want to please Allah. Right? It's important to have that intention, right? At the very least, I want to fast because I want to fulfill my obligations. Okay, if it's hard for you to think, oh, I want to please, for the sake of Allah, at least think, okay, I want to fulfill my obligations as a Muslim, right? And your obligation as a Muslim is to fast, right, in Ramadan, right, during Ramadan, right? Or to salat, to do your prayer, right, to fulfill your obligations of prayer. Okay, so it's very important that we make sure our intention is good, clear. Okay. Okay. So any questions? It's clear. Okay, so yeah, this is the first hadith of Imam Nawawi, right? And it is considered it's a very famous hadith. It's considered to be like one of the basics of Islam, that everything is based on intention, right? So often, right, whenever you think of let's say someone, many times, right, you might think that someone has like, they do something, right? They for example, they do something in public, or they might do something that, let's say, like, for example, someone does some action in public, and you might think, oh, like, why did he do this thing, right? It's always important for us to always, assume good intention, right? It's a common phrase that you might hear more often in work. But let's say, for example, like someone, like, in my work, for example, like people sometimes make mistakes, like say, or maybe, someone makes a mistake, in school or work, and the default, right, that we should have, right, is to always assume good intention, right? Because we always want to make sure that people, they don't necessarily always want to, do bad things, right? They might have a good intention, but because of something happens, that something else happens. Okay, but anyway, so this is the first hadith, and we have time. I wanted to go to the second hadith as well, which is also very important, right? And it covers also the fundamentals of Islam, right? That this is the basically, like, if someone were to ask you about Islam, this is your answer right here. Like, if someone asks you to explain what is Islam, you could refer to this hadith. So would anyone like to volunteer to read this? This one's a bit longer. So maybe we can, maybe someone can volunteer to read this, inshallah.
I'll do it.
Okay, thanks, Pastor.
The English part?
Yes, English, just English.
Okay. It was narrated on the authority Umar, may Allah be pleased with him, who said, we were one day sitting with the Messenger of Allah, peace be upon him. There appeared before us a man dressed in extremely white clothes with very black hair. No traces of journeying were visible upon him, and none of us knew him. He sat down close by the Prophet, peace be upon him, rested his knee against his thighs, and said, O Muhammad, inform me about Islam. The Messenger of Allah, peace be upon him, said, Islam is that you should testify that there is no deity except Allah, and that Muhammad is his messenger, that you should perform salah, pay the zakah, fast during Ramadan, and perform hajj to the house if you are able to do so. The man said, you have spoken truly. We were astonished that he is questioning him, the messenger, and telling him that he was right. But he went to say, inform me about Iman. He, the messenger of Allah, answered, it is that you believe in Allah and his angels, and his books and his messengers, and in the last day and in Qadar, both in good and its evil aspects. He said, you have spoken truly. Then the man said, inform me about Islam. He, the messenger of Allah, answered, it is that you should serve Allah as though you could see him, for though you cannot see him yet, know that he sees you. He said, inform me about the hour. The messenger of Allah said about that, one question knows no more than the questioner. So he said, well, inform me about the signs thereof. They are that the slave girl would give birth to a mistress, that you would see the barefooted, naked, destitute, the herdsmen of the sheep, competing with each other in raised, lofty buildings. Thereupon the man went. I waited a while,
And then the Messenger of Allah, said, "O Umar, you know who that questioner was?" I replied, "Allah and His Messenger know better." He said, "That was Jibreel. He came to teach you about your religion."
Okay. Jazakallah khair. Thank you, Basim, for yeah. This is a long hadith for sure. Many parts to look at. But this is basically, as the Prophet ﷺ said, the very basic, or the very basically, what Islam is, right? What is the religion of Islam? Like, if someone were to ask you this, you can actually honestly just repeat this, like what is mentioned here. Okay, so right, so if we take a look at the setting, right, from what we said, like this is, right, the situation is, right, the Prophet, the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, is sitting. You can imagine they're sitting somewhere, and with his companions, right, with I think Umar bin Khattab and someone else, and all of a sudden someone appeared, right? They appeared before us, a man in extremely wet clothes and very black hair, right? And we know who this is, right? Who is this man? He's at the end of the hadith.
Jibreel.
Jibreel alayhi salam, right? The angel Jibreel, right? The same angel, right? Who revealed to the Prophet, right? The Quran, right? In the cave of Hira, right? This angel Jibreel appeared to the Prophet again here, and right, asked him what? Asked him what is inform me about Islam. Basically, teach me about Islam. Okay, and right, the Prophet then answered, "What is Islam?" Right. So Islam is these things, and what is this that the Prophet ﷺ is talking about? Like this part here, but Islam is about testifying that there's no deity, right? Salat, zakat, fasting, Hajj. What is this? What is this? Anyone know? Right? These are also known as the 5 pillars, right? The 5 pillars of Islam, right? And what are the 5 pillars of Islam? You can tell me. So the 5 pillars of Islam are basically the things that every Muslim is required to do, right? So if you're a Muslim, then these are the things that you have to do to be considered a Muslim, right? And right, we have the 5, which is, what's the first one? What is the first pillar of Islam? Anyone?
The 5 pillars?
Yes.
Salat, Zakat, Ramadan, Hajj, and yes, we can say, you have to say that you believe Allah and Muhammad is His messenger.
Mm-hmm. Right. So that's the first one, right? There's the shahada, right? The testification that you believe in Allah shahada and His messenger. Yes, shahada is the first one. The second one is salah, right? Prayer. And how many prayers are we required to do?
5.
5, right? 5 daily prayers, right? Salat. And the third one is zakat. So zakat is basically you have to pay a certain amount of money every year. Is calculated to be how much? How much money you have to donate? Anyone know the number?
2.5.
Yes, 2.5% of your income every year, right? So some of you might not. I don't know if you guys are working or not, but if you did have some income, and it can be below a certain amount, I believe. But basically, if you have a certain amount of income, you'd have to donate 2.5% of that every year, right? And usually people do it during Ramadan, like in the last 10 nights. That's the best time to do deeds, right? People usually donate their zakat. They call it zakatul amal. They do it in those last 10 nights. They're 2.5% of their income. Okay, so that's the third pillar. The fourth pillar is fasting, right? Siyam, fasting in Ramadan, right? It's either 30 or 29 days of fasting, right? From Fajr to Maghrib. And the last pillar is, Basim said, is Hajj, or the pilgrimage, right? And how many times do we have to do this? 1, right? 1 time. Right? Only once in your life. That's it. Once you do it, you will have fulfilled your obligation. Of course, you can do it multiple times if you are able to, And it's better if you can do multiple times, but you have to do it at least once, right? So inshallah, anyone here have done Hajj before? Or Umrah? Has anyone done Umrah?
No.
So Umrah is basically a smaller Hajj. So Hajj has to be done in a specific time, right? So you have to do it in the month of Dhul Hijjah, right? That's when you have to do Hajj. But if you do the act of Hajj outside of that, it's called Umrah, right? It's usually a smaller pilgrimage, and usually you don't do the whole process of Hajj, but you still do the process of going to, going outside of Mecca, changing into your ihram, going into Mecca, right, and doing the tawaf, the circling, right, of the Kaaba, right? So that is the Umrah and Hajj, right? That you have to circle the Kaaba, and of course there are other steps that we won't go into, but these are the 5 pillars, right? The 5 pillars of Islam, and these are the things that every Muslim is required to do, right? These are your obligations, right? So there's another hadith that someone asked the Prophet ﷺ, basically he said something like, if I do all of these things, will I get into Jannah, right? Imagine, all you do is these things. If you do only these things and you don't commit any sins, the Prophet said, yes, you can go into Jannah, right? So if you do just the bare minimum, the 5 pillars, and you don't commit any sin, make sure that if you do commit sin, ask for forgiveness to Tawbah, right? That you don't transgress, and just do these things, inshallah, then you will get, the Prophet said, if he is sincere, he will go into Jannah, right? But do you think you can do just these 5 things and not commit sins? How easy do you guys think that is, right? It's not that easy, right? Like, even if we try not to commit sins, occasionally when we make mistakes, right? And of course, even if you do these minimal things, right, it's not guaranteed that what we do will be accepted, right? How do you know that your salah is accepted, right? How do you guarantee that when you prayed Fajr this morning, it's accepted, right? That's why we always, we try to do more than just the bare minimum, right? In Islam, there's this concept of, of basically perfection, right? That we want to strive, we know we can't be perfect. We want to strive for perfection. That we want to do the best that we can, right? That we want to do more. Like even though the bare minimum is okay, right? We try to do more. We try to do more sunnah prayers. We try to, if you can fast outside of Ramadan, try to fast, try to donate more to charity, right? We try to do more good deeds because we don't know if even our bare minimum, the 5 pillars, is enough. Okay? But but to educate ourselves, right? If someone were to ask you what is Islam, then you can just say these 5 things, right? It's the Shahada, right? Salat, Zakat, fasting, and Hajj. Okay? Right? So that's the 5 pillars of Islam. Okay, and the next part, right, then Jibreel alayhi salam then mentions, inform me about Iman. So what is Iman? And Iman is referring to belief, right? So Iman is this is known as the 6 pillars of Iman. So in addition to Islam, there's also the 6 pillars of Iman, right, which is the pillars of belief. And what are the pillars of Iman? Anyone can tell me? It is also here. What are the pillars of Iman?
You said it was Allah and His angels, His books, His messengers, the last day, and Qadar.
Okay, so it's Allah, right? So first one is Allah. Believe in Allah. We have to believe in Allah, obviously. That's the first pillar. The second one is His angels, right? So the angel, like Angel Jibreel alayhi salam, we believe in, right? The third one is the books, right? So the Quran is one of the books, but what other books are there? What are the other books revealed from Allah? Anyone know?
Like the Torah?
The Torah, which was revealed to which prophet?
Injil. What's it called? Torah was revealed to Isa, I think.
No, Musa. Musa, yes, it's Musa. Injil is another book which was revealed to which prophet? Did you say Alihan? Which prophet?
Isa.
Isa, right? So in Isa, Injil is Isa alayhi salam, right? And there may have been other books too that we know about as well, right? So that's the books as well. So Allah, His angels, His books, His messengers, right? The prophets, right? And how many prophets do we know of now? Anyone know? How many prophets that we know?
There's 25 mentioned ones by name.
So there are 25 that we know of by name, but we know that there were actually hundreds, if not thousands, of prophets sent by Allah that we just don't know, right? There could have been many prophets in history that we don't know, but we have to believe in them, right? As part of Iman, right? And then the last day, which is the day of judgment, right? We believe in that there will be a last day in which we will be judged for our deeds, right? And then the sixth pillar is qadar, or fate. What does this mean? Who can tell me what qadar means? What is fate? What does it mean if we say we believe in qadar? So qadar, if you qadar is basically like we believe that everything is predestined from Allah. Right? There's a sense of predestination, right? So you guys might, I don't know if you guys read or watch any like time travel things or stories or like there's a story I'm trying to remember that basically like some people they're trying to believe in free will, right? So there's a concept of free will, and that people think if you have free will, then there's no sense of fate, right? That you are free to do whatever you want, right? But as Muslims, we actually believe that there is fate, there is qadar, that basically Allah has already written down what is going to happen, right? And it's hard to imagine, like you basically whatever we're going to do in tomorrow, Allah already has written it down and already knows what's going to happen tomorrow, right? But that doesn't mean we don't have free will, right? So this is a very complex topic. We can go into this in much more detail, but basically, the point is we have to believe that there is a sense of fate, that everything we do has already been predestined by Allah. That's why, whenever something happens to us, let's say you got I don't know, you got a C in your class. I don't know if your parents like you having C's in your class, but if you got a C, right, it's a bad thing probably, right? But this, if we think about it, that's actually been predestined by Allah. That this is something that Allah has already determined for us, right? It doesn't mean that nothing I do matters, right? It just means that Allah has written this for us for a reason, right? That maybe this is a lesson for me from Allah to study more. Like maybe if I studied more, then Allah would have given me an A. Right? Maybe it would have been written that I would have gotten an A. So we still have a free will in this sense, but we believe that Allah is writing down our fate, or writing down our qadar, our fate. Does that make sense? Right? So we believe that qadar, or fate, comes from Allah, that everything is written down. Everything that happens, like you get a new job, you go to a new school, you make this friend, you get into this college, right? Or you maybe you did bad on your test, or you did good on your test. We believe that all of these things, it doesn't come from our own will, it comes from Allah, right? And that's very important. We're going to talk about that more in another hadith, but this is one of the pillars of Iman. This is something that we do believe in, that is very important in Islam as well. Okay? So that's the pillars of Iman, and then we'll just quickly go to the next part. We'll end with this one, but this is inform me about ihsan. So what is ihsan? Right? And ihsan here, I'll just say it, is that ihsan is basically that you worship Allah, that you pray to Allah as if you see Him, and even if you can't see Him, know that He sees you. Okay, what does that mean? Right? It means that whenever you pray, if you do your salat, this goes back to your intention, right? Remember that the best intention is what? To do something for the sake of Allah, right? So when we pray, you need to make sure that your prayer is for the sake of Allah, right? That you want to make sure that your prayer is sincere. And the best way to do that is this way, like that you serve Allah as if you see Him. Imagine you're praying, and let's say imagine that you're talking to the President of America right now. Maybe not This election season right now, so politics is probably not good. But let's say something better. Let's say you're talking to, I don't know, like the CEO of some major company, right? If you were to meet with him like in the next hour, how would you prepare? Like, you would probably make sure to brush your teeth, you would get into good clothes, put on good perfume, make sure that you have your suit and everything to make to your meeting to the CEO of this large company. Okay? Now imagine that you're going to prepare to pray Dhuhr prayer, right? Dhuhr prayer in front of Allah, right? This Allah is someone that's way, 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 way more important than the CEO, right? So how do you act in front of Allah? Right? Imagine that you were able to see Allah. He's actually talking to you. Like, this is your communication with Allah, right? How do you see him, right? And how do you prepare to see him, right? This is what ihsan is. Ihsan is basically when you worship someone, you worship them as if worship Allah. You worship Allah as if you see him. Like, imagine you're seeing him in front of you, right? And if you can't see him, then know that when you're praying, that he sees you, right? That's what ihsan is. That we have to. This is basically a clarification of your intention, right? Making sure you're sincere in your prayer. Okay, is that clear? Make sense? Right? So, right, this is, and the last part is the hour. We'll talk about that a bit more next week, maybe. But just the important thing is that we talk about Islam, the 5 pillars of Islam, right? There's the 6 pillars of Iman, and about Ihsan, right? Islam, Iman, Ihsan. Those are the 3 concepts of Islam that are very important to understand, right? So make sure you guys know this. I'm gonna do a quick test next week, so you guys remember this. Inshallah, it's very easy, right? What are the 5 pillars of Islam, 6 pillars of Iman, and Ihsan, right? Those are the 3 things. Because these are concepts that, basically cover the fundamentals of Islam. Like, if someone were to ask you, what is Islam? You can refer to this, right? And then you can just go in more depth into these things, right? Say, okay, if someone asks you, what is Islam? Just say, is to testify this, to do this prayer, to do this, right? Okay. All right. Is that good? Everyone clear? Okay.
Yes.
So, inshallah, we are slightly over time. But I think this was good. So inshallah, next week we will meet the same time. I will also create the WhatsApp group. If you don't have WhatsApp, that's okay. We will still have the parents WhatsApp group as well. I'll message the parents. Okay. Any final questions or comments anyone has? All right, it's good. Okay, so jazakumullah khair, everyone, for coming. Hopefully this was useful. And let's, inshallah, just remember to try to, if there's something that you can remember, like anything from here, then it's always good to try to apply it in your lives as well. Like, just to try to remember, okay, what is Islam, Iman, Ihsan, intention, right? And apply it to your lives as well. So this is not just something that you come to just to learn, but also apply in your life too. Okay, so just remember that. And we'll close today with dua and kafaratul majlis. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى ال محمد كما صليت على ابراهيم وعلى ال ابراهيم في العالمين انك حميد مجيد. رب اغفر لي ولوالدي وارحمهما كما ربياني صغيرا. ربنا اتنا في الدنيا حسنه وفي الاخره حسنه وقنا عذاب النار. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك اشهد ان لا اله الا انت استغفرك واتوب اليك. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر ان الانسان لفي خسر الا الذين امنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. Okay, jazakumullah khair, everyone, and see you all next week. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you for joining us, Teacher Fateh.
Salam.
Goodbye. Have a great
Bye.
day. Yes.